In a newsletter from former CNN producer Steve Krakauer, he actually argues, somewhat facetiously, that Jim Acosta and Alcindor are helping Trump get reelected. I actually think he means they literally are doing it. But the joke he makes is that Jim Acosta is secretly working for the Trump campaign. Now, before you all start going, oh, harumph, Jim Acosta is awful, he would never work for Trump. It's a joke, but the joke is Jim Acosta plays perfectly into the hands of Donald Trump. It is like, Trump comes out and says the fake news, and then Jim Acosta is right there to be exactly what everyone needs as an example of how awful the press is. Grandstanding trash to sell a book. And he breaks this down. I want to read this for you. Coming from a former CNN producer, it's my understanding. I could be wrong. This is from the First TV's Fourth Watch newsletter. Check it out. Acosta and Alcindor are helping Trump get reelected. He writes, I don't think CNN White House correspondent Jim Acosta is a bad guy. I worked with him at CNN, and he was a solid, competent reporter. If Acosta's goal was to be a great White House reporter, he could probably do it. But that's not Jim Acosta's goal. Jim Acosta wants to be famous. I've written before, 3 years ago, that Acosta clearly aspires to use this opportunity to spar with President Trump, hashtag resistance signal on Twitter, and generally build his brand to move on to bigger things, a primetime show maybe, or at least a few late-night TV appearances. To get an idea of Jim Acosta's priorities, here was his Twitter profile background last year during his book tour. And lo and behold, it is Jim Acosta smiling, promoting his book over on Jimmy Kimmel. You know what, man? We need an honest press. We need people who are willing to tell us what's happening in an honest way so we can figure it out for ourselves. And by all means, journalists have opinions. No one's saying they shouldn't. I have opinions all the time. But I'm not going to falsely frame things or lie about what's going on. I could be wrong for sure, but I want you to make a decision for yourself. You can disagree with me all day and night. Most people do. Jim Acosta? Nah, he wants to be on Jimmy Kimmel. Man, I tell you what, I could not stand any of that stuff. That's what he wants, though. Check it out. Steve writes, Jim Acosta loves nothing more than Jim Acosta. But I've also have joked that if we found out years from now that Acosta was actually a plant and was secretly working for the Trump re-election campaign, I wouldn't be shocked. I love this. Take this moment from Friday's marathon coronavirus briefing. Watch how Acosta plays the role of absurd antagonistic journalist and tees up Trump to deliver what could essentially be a campaign message. Quote, we hear from a lot of people who see these briefings as sort of happy talk briefings, said Acosta. Do we have enough masks? No. Do we have enough tests? No. Do we have enough PPE? No. Then Trump jumps in and counters every point. There's nothing happy about it, Jim. This is sad talk, says Trump. These are the saddest news conference that I've ever had. I don't like doing them. You know why? Because I'm talking about death. There's no happy talk, Jim. This is the real deal. And Steve's right on this. Not only is he teeing up Trump for the perfect campaign message, Jim was wrong. Gavin Newsom just praised Donald Trump, saying he's delivered what Trump's been able to deliver. And Cuomo said that when Trump talks to him on the phone, he always asks, how's your brother doing? How are things going? And praised the president. Now, they bicker back and forth. But Jim Acosta, what are you talking about? Do we have enough tests? No. Look, man, the media goes back and forth on what's going on. It's really hard to figure it out. But Jim Acosta is wrong on this and just makes Trump look right. Is Jim secretly working for Trump? You know what, man? Useful idiot, I guess. I'd love to believe the fringe conspiracy theory because it's funny. Probably not. Of course not. But, hey, I wouldn't be surprised. Steve writes, Trump couldn't ask for a better foe than Jim Acosta. And the reporters who are trying to do good work and get answers to very real questions know this. One of those reporters who has shifted from fairly solid New York Times journalist to resistance signaler has been PBS's Yamiche Alcindor. During the same briefing, Alcindor took an answer from Surgeon General Jerome Adams, in which the African-American administrator member used terms like abuela and big mama to talk to Hispanic and black communities, and noted on Twitter during the briefing many found this language highly offensive. So Alcindor took the opportunity later in the briefing to ask him about this offensive commentary. Quote, there have been some people online that are already offended, she said during the coronavirus briefing. Adams' answer was nuanced and thoughtful. He described conversations he's had recently with the NAACP and how they'd like him to target outreach to the black community. Forget the double standard like when President Obama said, get Uncle Joe, get Pookie, get Javier to vote. The lack of seriousness by some in the media is juxtaposed the seriousness of Trump and his administration during these briefings. As I've noted, Trump does veer away from that seriousness on Twitter, for sure. Many people would like him to tweet less. Sometimes his tweets are hilarious and on point. Sometimes he goes on these big Twitter rants. I wonder who's in control of the phone when that happens. Steve writes, but exchanges like the ones with Acosta and Alcindor Friday during the coronavirus briefings are actively helping Trump get reelected, and they make all of the press look bad. Thank you, good sir. You are absolutely correct. Jim Acosta, get him out of there, man. You know, they complained about that Chanel Rion from One American News. Yeah, fine. Then get rid of Jim Acosta and you can get rid of people like, Chanel as well, right? But as long as you want to have this as your standard, then don't be surprised when someone comes in and they're pro-Trump, when Jim Acosta comes in and just spews word vomit to tee up Trump for a perfect slam dunk. However, I do have some good news here. Recode wrote this story just today, and I am impressed. This is Vox.com, mind you. What went wrong with the media's coronavirus coverage? They actually say, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, for instance, didn't tell the country to stop gathering in groups until March 15th, weeks after a top CDC official announced the virus would begin spreading through the U.S. And after telling Americans for months they should not wear masks unless they are sick, the government formally flipped that advice on April 3rd and said everyone should wear some kind of covering on their face in certain public settings. I'm highlighting this to contrast that of Jim Acosta. This is Vox, at least someone in media, owning up to their serious mistakes. Let me break things down for you. Now, hindsight is 20/20. Here's what I see. Early on, I said Trump wasn't taking this seriously enough. He should have done more. He was downplaying it. It now seems, based on information we've received, that Trump may have been downplaying it to prevent a panic. The reason I think that is because he received a memo, immediately formed a task force, and then shut down travel from China. More importantly, the CDC, as mentioned by Vox, was telling people to do their thing until March 15th. How is it Trump's fault? The entire government, the media, everyone messed this up. I appreciate the honesty. Check this out. Who is this? Peter Kafka writes, much of the mainstream media amplified the slow and muddled reaction to the rapidly spreading virus. Since alarming reports about COVID-19 began to emerge from China in January, the media often provided information to Americans that later proved to be wrong or at least inadequate. For instance, while President Trump has been correctly pilloried for describing the coronavirus as less dangerous than the flu, the message was commonplace in mainstream media outlets throughout February. And journalists, including my colleagues at Vox, were dutifully repeating exhortations from public health officials not to wear masks for much of 2020. Where did Donald Trump get the idea that this was not as bad as the flu? Could it be the media kept saying it over and over again? Jim Acosta likes to get up and blame Trump for all of these problems, teeing Trump up to say X. Hey, we're doing a good job. And if you actually track the media and watch what was going on, you would know that what he's saying is just not true. Trump was a victim of fake news. I think he didn't want to believe it. And then later, early on, he was very serious. You had Republicans there were very serious. Tucker Carlson was very serious, and Trump was downplaying it. As I mentioned, I think Trump was trying to prevent panic. The media, on the other hand, was just trying to say whatever Trump said was wrong. So when Trump came out saying, the task force and the travel ban, the media, of course, then says it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. Even Vox said it would not get bad. Washington Post, of course, said it wasn't as bad as the flu. Then once Trump starts saying it's not that bad, basically what the media was saying, they flip the script and accuse him of being wrong. And even Vox now saying he was wrong. He goes on to say, Rico goes on to say, as we head into the next phase of this pandemic, and as the stakes mount, it's worth looking back to ask how the media could have done better as the virus broke out of China and headed to the U.S. You know what? I agree. He says, why didn't we see this coming sooner? And once we did, why didn't we sound the alarm with more vigor? The same can be said for everyone in government. It can be said for the mayors, for the governors, for the media, for the president. I'm sick and tired of this being a partisan issue and everyone got it wrong. Trump was calling it out while Bill de Blasio was saying everyone get together in New York. So you want to put the blame on the worst hit city in the country? It's on Bill de Blasio. But I don't even want to play that game anymore. The media has been bad at this. The media deserves criticism. But the main reason I'm highlighting this to you now is that maybe it's time we all just stop, recognize we all got it wrong to varying degrees, and to move forward, we need to actually focus on solving these problems. I'm willing to make a bet. I'm not going to say what I think because I know it'll fan the flames. One thing I can say, though, CNN. Get rid of Jim Acosta because he is muddying the waters. And to all these other outlets, get rid of the people who are muddying the waters as well, making it hard for us to understand what's really happening. You want to get rid of Trump's press briefings? Fine, stop airing them. Then stop airing people like Acosta. How about we all just sit down and figure out what to do? I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment's coming up in a few minutes, and I will see you all shortly.